Start the recording. Hello? Hello everyone, can you hear me? Should be live. I'm gonna post the announcements to... Let's see, post this one. Post this one. Post this one. And this one. There we go. Hello, can you hear me? Hello everyone. Is audio okay? Yep, there we go. Camera. I'll check the focus as a computer user. No, unfortunately we don't have any cider today. Hello. Hello Bitcoin, Starla, Protogen Flex. Hello. How's everyone? Okay, so should be live. So hello everyone, I'm Froox, and we're doing another episode of Resonance. Unfortunately not Sarah today, but I'll be answering any questions you might have about Resonite or anything else you want to ask. Main thing, make sure to put a question mark at the in your Twitch chat message, and that it kind of pops on the pinned messages, and I will make sure not to miss it. I also have a bunch of questions from Discord, so I'm gonna go through those first, while some questions pop from the Twitch, and should be able to get through stuff. I think that's kind of everything. So let's see. I'm gonna put the camera. There we go. I'm gonna adjust it a little bit. Actually, hold on. There we go. It's nicer, more sky. And let's see. So the first question we got from Discord, and this might be kind of out of order a little bit, but the first one I got is a question from Qualia. Qualia is asking, I'm exploring the idea of running a small, userless, headless server that only runs on Perflex continuously and communicates to outside world through network calls and cloud wars. I'm thinking about ways to make this reliable. So one question, does the reading and writing cloud wars continue to work across incompatible Resonite versions? Yes, it does. The cloud wars, they use basic data types. So those are generally kind of compatible across versions. The only issue you might run into is if we ever introduce new data types for cloud wars, then it's not gonna work, the new data type is not gonna work on older versions of Resonite, but generally it is compatible because it's just values, so there's not too much, structure. So yeah, it'll generally work. The only thing other with Cloud Wars is across machines they don't sync fully in real time, so that might be one thing you run into right now. But generally the values will work across versions. Next question is, that's also from Discord, it's from Titofera. Actually, I'm gonna put it here maybe. There we go, let's see how that works. Titofera is asking, is it possible to disable VR tracking from sending data into a network? Is it possible to make Flux system where VR tracking only sends data to a network every 5 frames? It seems like it's 2 questions, or 3, or multiple. So the first one, you can't really disable the VR tracking from sending data over a network. The way Resonite works, it implicitly synchronizes everything. So if you're in a world and you're tracked, that's gonna be network because other people need to see that. If you don't want VR tracking to be sent over network, then you must not be VR tracked. I mean, you could potentially break it, but then people are not gonna see you move, and it's just gonna break things. So I guess my question would be what's your goal? What are you trying to achieve? Because I don't know what problem are you trying to solve. For the Flux system, you can't really adjust it like that. So you would essentially need to adjust the streams, and that's gonna there's not a way to dynamically access them from Flux right now. For a second question, I notice more players equals more lag, even with the cheapest avatar. Is this because of locomotion or network data being sent and received into user's computer? If that's the case, is there possible solutions to possibly cut down process of these issues? So the one thing I want to get out there, like this is the thing I feel like a lot of people don't understand is like, if you want the program to do more stuff, it'll take more performance to do it because you're making it do more stuff. So more players will always be more expensive to process than fewer players because you're inherently processing more things. So if you're asking, like, for a system that's able to do more without having to spend any more resources for it, like, that's fundamentally, like, not possible. It's almost like, asking, say you have a car and you want the car to be able to drive infinite distance on the same amount of fuel. Like, fundamentally doesn't work. Like the further you drive away, the more fuel you're gonna use. Same, with multiple users. More users in the session, you need to do more processing because you're just processing more stuff. Now, what you can do is you can make it more efficient. So, for example, if you go with a car analogy, you can, drive more efficiently, use less fuel for the same amount of distance, or get a car that is more fuel efficient, so you can drive longer distance for the same amount of fuel. You can increase the efficiency, but you will still, even with that, there's still the relationship between, the distance, between the distance and how much fuel you consume. So we can also make, processing users more efficient, meaning we can, for the same amount of performance, we can have now more of them in a session, but you're still gonna have, the equation more players equals more lag, that'll always hold true. If you want to do more stuff, that's gonna be, it is gonna cost you some performance. So the way, it's kind of where the analogy breaks a little down. The way you actually, for a lot of games and apps, the way you actually solve it is you create an illusion of more players without actually having more stuff being processed. So, for example, if players are too far away, you don't even send the data, you don't even simulate them, or maybe you just send tiny billboard or something, some very simple representation that's very cheap and efficient, but it's not a full player. Only when you get close to them, you start doing the full simulation and doing more detail and transferring the actual network data. Meanwhile, the players you got away from get turned into a simple billboard. So you can sort of create an illusion that there is more players, without the extra lag. But ultimately, if you want actually more players, you're always gonna have that relation. And that's kind of the two things we can do. One is, more efficiency. It's pretty much all parts of the system. Even simple avatar, it needs to be updated, it needs to be rendered. Those are things that you need to do to represent that player. So you can make them much simpler, but simple isn't zero. The effect will never be zero, because to do zero, you need to not do anything. You can be very smart about how you kind of structure things, so it looks like there's a lot of things, but ultimately that equation will always hold. Doing more stuff requires more processing power. You're not getting around that. For what causes it, it also depends what you mean by lag, because lag can mean a lot of different things to people. Is definitely gonna cause more network. The network needs to be processed, the data needs to be transferred, the positions need to be transferred, their voice needs to be transferred. For the avatar, you need to render it, you need to compute, the position, decode them. You're doing stuff to represent that player. So if you want more players, you have to make those processes both more efficient. That way, for the same amount of performance, you can cram in more players, and also you need to have some kind of calling system where at some point it'll actually stop processing that player or process them very, very infrequently. So it kind of overall cuts down on how much compute power you need. But you essentially at no point you're ever gonna get around needing more performance to do more stuff. That's just fact. Like, you know, like that, like you. The only way, pretty much, is you create an illusion that there's more, when in fact you're not actually processing more. Next question. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Next question is from. Actually, hold on, I need to turn off a thing. There we go. Next question we got is from Shrike. What's the progress on the render auto restart when it crashes? I feel like it's something we'll talk about a fair bit, because buttoning only to stop hearing about it for a while. Are there problems making work with Unity that will require another update, or is it just on back burner for now? It's pretty much just on back burner. I was kind of like working on it. I had like a good chunk of it implemented, but it still needs to have another chunk implemented. Essentially what I did, I kind of implemented like the mechanisms for like detecting a restart, starting the restart, and having sort of like a framework where it tells all the systems like you need to kind of reinitialize right now, but I haven't implemented like the reinitialization for everything. It needs, the biggest part is the asset system, because that essentially needs to reset state of all the assets and sort of re-upload them to the render on the new start. There's no issues from Unity's side, like there even fundamentally cannot be, because like Unity is the part that crashes, it just goes away. So from Unity's perspective, it just looks like it's having a fresh start and has no idea, like, you know, the fresh start is actually existing state. But I kind of like got like busy with some other and kind of got like kind of burned out like for a lot of this like splitting stuff, so I had to kind of move on to like some other projects, and I just haven't had time to like work on it more since, because there were kind of like, you know, other priorities. I don't know how urgent it is, because like personally, like I pretty much like never get render crashes. Like they happen very, very rarely. If it's something that like, you know, is happening a lot to you, that might be worth like noting, because then it gives me more like, you know, reason to like reprioritize it again. But right now, like there's just kind of other things that are, you know, on top of like my priority list. Next question is from Mint Shock. Let me put this one here. There we go. So Mint Shock is asking, what assets are not counted against one storage quota? As far as I know, anything Resonite Essentials, probably including the community share folder, asset variants, on original when it counted, Cloud Home Dash menu. Very certain that changes to Home Dash count against quota though. Is the correct? Am I missing any? What about official worlds that are published by Resonite account? Do those count against quota? Very certain this asked before, maybe even by me, but I can't find a clip of what source to point for the wiki. So generally the system will not count anything that's actually uploaded to the Resonite group. So that's specifically what it checks for. It checks is the asset owned by Resonite group. If the Resonite group was the first to kind of upload it, then essentially it will count that asset as free. So if it's something that's saved to a Resonite team, then it will count. That stuff is not exempt. But I think that's like part of the actual Resonite group, like on the Resonite account, that is not counted. So like all of the official worlds, shaders, like text assets and stuff, that's not counted. It's pretty much like the main logic it kind of uses. Asset variants, they're completely kind of like separate. Those are considered like ephemeral, like they can be like deleted any time, regenerated any time, so they don't count against like quota. There can be also more of them over time, so it's only the original asset that kind of counts for storage. But it's pretty much it. Like it just checks, is it like, was this asset uploaded to the Resonite group? Next question's from Mintshock, also from Mintshock. I always feel weird when referring to Resonite as a game, for example saying that someone can get help in a game, which essentially boils down to me for the fact that Resonite is so much more than just a game. What would be your preferred way of saying essentially the same? A platform maybe? That kind of feels clunky. Yeah, I wish I just refer to it as a game because it's simpler. Like, I feel like sometimes we call it an app or, you know, platform or social sandbox, but like, I feel like game is just kind of easier for people to get it. It definitely is like, you know, more than a game, but like it's the description that people get, and that's the simplest to say. So I'm just gonna doesn't matter that much. For the question, second, I intentionally discussed the links Patreon instead of the subscription page. I don't know where to put this question. I should probably update it. The main thing with Patreon is like people are just kind of more familiar with it, and we wanted like a nicer flow, but like we're kind of swapping it, and I probably just need to swap it, but I'll probably forget by the time I'm out of here. And one last question from Discord is from a computer user Fake, and they're asking, if there was one design choice you could go back in time and stop yourself from making, what would it be, and why is it using Unity game engine? Actually, it wouldn't be that one. Because like if we go back in time, so let me put it this way, if I was starting, you know, Resonite and Froox engine now, I would make different choices, like, you know, but those different choices are also because there's different stuff available now that was when I originally started it. Because when I originally started like Froox engine, like the initial sort of versions of it, there was no Godot. Like, at least it wasn't like really anything that pretty much anybody knew about. I actually forgot when Godot like introduced, but like, as far as I know, like there was like no Godot. It wasn't anywhere like in a state like where it's like usable. There was not even Unreal. Like Unreal was not available for like, you know, making, you know, stuff. Like that was like still kind of locked for like, you know, big game studios. So like you couldn't access Unreal. So like Unity was like pretty much like the only choice, other than like just writing my own like render engine from the scratch. But that's also like a big task. So doing that for a project like would probably mean like it wouldn't get past the initial stage where like I needed something that kind of works, and like starting with a render that would have made it take way longer. So Unity was sort of like used to like bootstrap, like, you know, Froox engine, where it kind of filled in some areas that I didn't want to focus at time, and over time like I would have like replaced them with like, you know, our custom systems. So that one actually would not be like something I would change, because that the decision was, you know, based on what's available at the time and what were sort of the requirements that I needed to do. So going back in time, you know, I would still be under the same requirements and probably would still make the same decision. If I were like, you know, to make the decision now, if I was like starting it and the stuff that's available now, I would probably go with, you know, something else. But that just, you know, that just wasn't what was available at the time. For actual design choice, I could go back and change. I'd have to kind of think about it a bit. Like that was kind of difficult. I have to think about like stuff, because like there's like a bunch of decisions I've already changed, because I usually put like enough like to make things modular and kind of decide, okay, like I want this thing to be changed, I want to like rework it. I'm having trouble like remembering like anything that I would like really want to change. I know there's like some stuff that I would want to change, but like I don't quite remember, like, because a lot of them are changed. So for example, like a while back we had like an IK system that was based on Beppu physics, specifically the first version of Beppu physics, and it was kinda bad. It was like JOIK, but like, you know, you end up like replacing it with a much better IK system. So that's like, you know, something was changed. There's also like ones that are kind of tricky, like, you know, there's stuff like, for example, simple weather protection. Originally it was designed to be very simple, because that's how it was, you know, we were like, oh, we need just something very simple that's, you know, not like 100% protection, which like you can't even do if you really wanted to, but it was something very simple, you know, and that's enough to like kind of cover us for now. And then they just there were so many issues that stem from that. Like, so many, because, like, you can tell people this is just meant to be simple, but people will be like, oh, like, you can get around it this way, and you can get around it this way, and this way, and this way, and this way. And we're like, well, yeah, there was kind of... It wasn't meant to, like, be, like, super comprehensive, like, protection system, just a simple one, like... Essentially, like, the original design goal of it was, like, oh, you can't just grab the avatar and just save it. You know, like, you can't just do it, like, in one click. And it was pretty much, like, you know, how it was designed and what it was designed for. And people don't get that, and that's kind of, like, what's caused a lot of headaches over time. Actually, no, I do... So, some of the design decisions I would want to change is, like, exposing some of the systems that were, like, not meant to be exposed. Like, I would probably want to be more conscious about what is actually available in the system, because there's, you know, stuff like ref hacking, for example. And it's something I haven't really thought about, that people are gonna, like, abuse this to, like, you know, do stuff. So just kind of, you can kind of do it. If I could, I would go back in time and make sure, like, that's not possible in the first place. I would, like, design the thing so, like, it doesn't expose stuff to make that possible, and we're just gonna be, like, from the ground up, like, designed to, like, make people follow the proper system instead of, like, using those hacks. So that is one I would probably want to change. But now, you know, it's already happened. It's a whole, like, you know, issue thing, and I'm kind of, like, dreading the day, like, where we touch something and it breaks, and people's stuff will break. And if we told them not to, and people will get angry, even though, like, we told them, like, don't rely on this because it will break. So the only way to kind of prevent that situation is not make it possible in the first place. But it's not something that... There's actually one thing I kind of underestimated, like, that, like... I thought people would be more reasonable about it. Like, if you would say, like, this is not a reliable system, we cannot support this, that people would be like, okay, like, you know, they would understand. But instead, like, a lot of people will argue, they'll be like, no, you should support it, you know, like this needs to be supported because we're already using it, and, like, we literally can't, it wasn't designed to. We're trying to, like, you know, be, like, upfront with you about, like, and give you warning about it. This is fragile. It is gonna break, and we won't be able to, like, you know, fix it because it's just gonna using sort of hacks and quirks. But, like, people just don't understand that, like, and that's a thing I kinda didn't think would happen. Like, I thought, like, people would be like, you know, like, if we're, like, clear about something, and very clear, that people would, like, you know, take that into account and be more responsible with things. But that doesn't happen, and that's causing a bunch of issues. So those are the kinds of things I would want to go back in time and change to, like, prevent them from happening in the first place. So there you go. So that's all the questions. That's all the questions from Discord. I'm gonna start going through the ones from Twitch. So we got I'm gonna already answer this one back, but Jake the Froox was asking, are you live already? Yes, I'm live. And computer user was asking, no Sarah for today. We don't have any Sarah today, unfortunately. Oh no, I'm gonna pronounce this wrong. Jack was, like, teaching me how to pronounce this. Come on. Teaching how to pronounce this. Schwanzluften. I don't know how did I pronounce it. Yeah. It's this is kind of funny thing because, like, recently I made, like, a devlog, like, because one of my fun projects is, like, making, like, audio transcription. And I was like, I want to say something in German, but, like, this is the first thing that comes to my mind, because there's a thing, like, we call it German bingo. Just combine two random German words and watch how Germans react. And I did this, like, in a session when we're playing Blood on Clock Tower, and we're, like, in the night phase, and I said this, and, like, the two Germans in the session, they just started laughing. And once they, like, you know, gotta stop laughing, they were like, Froox, never say that again. And I like naturally, you know, I've been saying it a bunch since, and now I got a bunch of Germans to say it as well. So I'm very mission achieved, I guess. But yeah, like when I was testing the voice transcription, I was like, can I get it to detect German? And I was like, okay, like this is the first thing that comes to my mind to say. And it worked, except I didn't pronounce the umlaut right, because we don't have umlauts in my language. Oh my god, this is being unruly. Next question's from Starla Evo. Evo? Why is Resonite's cloud servers called Skyfrost? Because it sounds cool. That's pretty much like it. I don't feel like asking about the origin of the name. The way I kind of came up with the name Skyfrost, it's like multiple things. I was kind of playing with stuff, you know, because it's cloud, like cloud, sky. Frost, like, you know, is like oh, like there's frost in the sky, like, you know, like crystals and so on, because like we do use a bit of like theming with like crystals and minerals and so on, so like that was kind of another influence. And also like I was inspired by like, you know, Bifrost, which is like from the like Norse mythology, like the bridge that connects worlds, so it's kind of like referencing that. So it's kind of like multiple things. It sounds cool. It is a reference to Norse mythology, sort of, and it's like a bridge, and the cloud is, you know, like a bridge that connects, you know, things through the sky. So that's pretty much it, like, you know, how the name kind of came by. Like, there's multiple influences. Sky, because cloud, frost, because, like, ice crystals, and we have crystals kind of theme, and the whole name Skyfrost, like, is meant to be a reference to Bifrost, which is like a bridge that connects things. So that's pretty much the origin for the name. Next question. Oh my god, this keeps popping. We got a question from LotScript2. Newbie here, is Resonite made with Unity, or are you just using the rendering pipeline? Yeah, we're pretty much like using just the rendering pipeline. Mostly Resonite is our own custom engine called Froox engine, and we're actually using something like called like multi-process architecture, where our main engine, it runs as a modern .NET 10 process, and then Unity, the render part, is actually running as a separate process, and is communicating through like inter-process communication system, like using shared memory. It's like it's very like kind of unique architecture, and we're actually working towards removing Unity as a renderer and replacing it with like something that we have more control over, because we keep having a lot of issues with Unity renderer. What is also like another thing, we actually recently open sourced the Unity part of our project. So let me see if I can grab the repo for you. So you can actually look how the Unity part works, and we've even got like, you know, a bunch of community contributions as well. So let me grab the link for you. So if you go to this repository, I'm gonna make this one a bit smaller so this kind of fits better. If you go to this repository at this URL, or just like, you know, search the name of the repo, this is the source code for renderer. Like, this is for the Unity project for the renderer part. It also has links to the other repo for the library that it uses. But yeah, it's fully open source. You can look at it. You can like look how it is made. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, you know, like we're eventually gonna replace this with a different renderer. We're currently in the process of that. We have a project. If you actually check our announcements on our Discord, there's like a recent announcement where we have this project called Road to New Renderer, and we're gonna be finalizing phase 1 on like, I think May 12th was it? In about like less than 2 weeks, and we're gonna move it to the next phase. And eventually, like, you know, the plan is to replace the renderer. Once we replace Unity, like, it's gonna solve a lot of issues, a lot of bugs. It should help improve performance significantly as well, but we also get new features like custom shaders, for example. Because the problem with Unity right now is Unity doesn't let you dynamically generate shaders at runtime. You sort of need to pre-build them. So we need a render, like, where we have control over the shader pipeline, so we can, like, you know, like, you can just construct shaders in game, and they just get, like, uploaded to the render, and it just kind of works. So yeah, it's, we do this kind of Unity, but, like, we are using it in a very, very, very unique way. And it's mostly just kind of, you know, the render pipeline, and you can kind of have a look if you want to poke around it. Oh my god. Glitchfur is asking, what is your favorite berry in Vintage Story? Blueberries. I like blueberries. I saw red currant and black currant. I like red currant, black currant. Also cranberries. Cranberries are good. Oh, I saw the white currant. I never had white currant in real life, so I don't know what it one actually tastes like. I wanna try white currant sometime. I really like black currant, and I really like red currant. Those are good. And blueberries. I like blueberries. And cranberries are pretty good too. Like, they don't like different tastes, but then they're good as well. I like I like fruit. We need more berries. Need to find more fruit. There's also mangoes. We haven't found mangoes yet. Next question is from Austin Rocket 8. Have you tried? I don't actually know how to pronounce their name. Sandbox. I think I meant to pronounce it Sandbox. It's VR support. I haven't really tried it, so I can't really comment. I'm sorry. Next question from a computer user. We got Schnoppet. I'm gonna keep my Schnoppet simple today, I guess. Like, one thing that kind of like bugs me a lot is like when people are reporting like issues or like having problems, when they just, you know, they start using passive aggression, or like they just become like very rude or like just aggressive, and they think, you know, that's gonna help them like care about their issues. And like I don't understand that kind of mindset, because it's like you come to somebody and you punch them in the face, and then you ask them to give you a favor and help you with something after punching them. You're like why would you know, want to do that? Like, it's like one of those things. Like, it just kind of gets very, very tiring dealing with it over time, and it's just kind of like don't have like patience for it at this point. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like if you're like gonna be like dick to us, like we're not gonna want to help you as much. It's like that simple. Like if we understand like issues can be frustrating, but you don't get issues resolved by like, you know, venting the frustration at us. You know, we need to like be able to work on those issues and focus on the issue itself, not focus on the anger. Because the anger doesn't help fix problems. Focusing on the issue and talking about it in, you know, professional manner does. So that's pretty much it. Next question is from LotScript2. More of a fun thought question. Do you have team meetings in Resonite? Yes, we do. We pretty much like meet every Thursday in Resonite. Like we have like this kind of big session. We have like, you know, we actually have a really cool meeting system made by Ryuvi, where there's like a list of all the topics we have for the meeting. We have like a way to like raise our hands. We can see who's speaking, and we can put like documents on display that everybody can see. There's like a chat system as well, like, and that's all built in Resonite. So we're pretty much like dog fooding Resonite, because I feel that's a very important part. It's like, you know, if you're making something and you care about it, you want to be using it. You want to be a regular user of whatever you're making, because then you kind of inherently understand your own product, and you also understand, like, you know, like all the like little issues and frustration and such, because you're dealing with them, and it kind of makes you more want to fix them. So yes, like we do meetings in Resonite. A lot of the stuff we also, because Resonite's a very collaborative platform, like official like worlds and experiences like the Cloud Home and the tutorial and so on, they're actually built on platform as well. So our team, they will like get together in a world and like bring objects, and they'll do like sketches and drawing, because you can like just sketch anything, and they'll essentially like work it out inside of Resonite. Let me see if I can just I was gonna grab a quick brush. You can start like just sketching, like be like, okay, like just gonna be like this area, and this like building, and maybe like we'll put a thing here, and and like this will kind of connect here, and you can sort of spatially just sketch out like whatever like you want to be like doing, and visualize it. You can shrink up and down, and like it is very powerful. So yes, we do a lot of Resonite. A lot of the also worlds, they're actually built inside of Resonite, so we literally have our team together in a world, just building the world around them, which is like huge for collaboration, because like with traditional like approaches, you have to like have like one of the people like say working in Unity, and then have to like send it to a repo, and then the other person has to pull the changes, and then they do their thing, and you can have to move the parts of the project back and forth. But with real-time collaboration, you're literally in the same world, working in parallel at the same time, and it's incredibly powerful. Next question is from computer user. They're asking typunks. So typunks is like, for those of you who know, it's opposite of Schnappet. I would say for the typunks, and I don't actually remember if we did last time, but I would say all the people like who are like helping us solve issues. We heard recently a number of like issues like where somebody like in the community, they looked into it and they proposed a fix, and like we looked at it and we're like, yeah, this actually works, and we merged it, and it actually saved a lot of work on our end. And when we open source the renderer, that actually helped a lot with that as well, because now there's been like some issues where I was like, I kind of don't want to spend more time on this myself, because like there's like other higher priorities. But now with it being open source, people can look into things I don't have time to, and that saves a ton of time, and it actually helps improve things for everyone. Like one of them that we're actually testing right now is trying to run the render part with compile with IL to C++, and seeing how it helps improve performance. As one of the things like where I kind of banged my head for it for a while, and it was like, I kind of don't want to be spending more time like looking into this, because I don't even know if it's actually gonna help like improve anything. So I didn't want to spend the time, but with it open source, I think it was like Jay Biden like looked into a lot of it, and they managed to get it compiled, and now we're actually running a pre-release test, like testing how it improves performance, which it seems to do a little bit, not like a hugely, but like it seems to make things a little bit smoother. But now we know, thanks to Jay Biden's work, and we might end up like integrating it officially. So thank you to everyone who's like contributing to our projects. We also merged for our Unity SDK. We merged the initial like Poemi support from Baplar, which takes Poemi shaders and will try to convert them to like Resonite equivalents and try to get it as close as it can. So it was also like a huge task, just because Poemi is a huge shader. So thank you, Baplar, and like thanks everyone like who's making contributions and improving things. Sharkman also did contribution for like a simpler avatar setup wizard that made things easier, so like very appreciative, like because it helps. We're like very small team, we're very underfunded, so getting like any help helps a lot, and it helps like improve this project, so thank you everyone. Check the Froox author is asking, challenge, can you pick and explain one cool thing feature in Froox engine that not many people know about? I don't know, like that could be a lot of things. Depends what kind of feature. Like it would kind of help the constraint a little bit, because there's like so many, and I generally don't know how many people. I'm gonna actually go a little bit technical with this one, because it kind of came up with a recent devlog. So one cool thing that Resonite has, it's not quite exposed to users yet, but it's a thing in the engine, are local slots. So, there's the hierarchy that you can see in the inspector, and it's like usually most of everything, but technically any slot can actually have local-only children. Because the way Resonite works, it implicitly synchronizes everything. Your entire, scene hierarchy, whatever changes you make to it, like, it just gets synchronized, and Resonite makes sure it stays the same on everybody's end. But now there's like a few things where that is actually not needed. So the engine, it also has a system to make things local only, because we want to kind of simplify some things, like implementation of some things, keeping them local but still using all the other systems in the engine. And the way it's used inside of the engine is actually to implement some of the features, like for example UIX, like rendering the UI or rendering like a text renderer. If you create like a text renderer, the way it actually works, the text renderer, it is just essentially just like a procedural mesh that also updates a texture, that is like a shared texture for all the fonts. And what it does, it creates a local slot with just a mesh render, like the same mesh render like you use for rendering everything else. It creates that, and it feeds itself into it as the mesh, and then it gives it a material that it manages, that's also local, with the font, the font atlas. So that way, from the perspective of the renderer, it doesn't even know there's a text renderer. It just sees a mesh and a texture and material, and we don't need to implement a whole another system for rendering to handle text rendering, because it's expressed through the same primitives as everything else. Same with canvases and UIX. It literally creates a bunch of mesh renderers and materials that are local only to render this. And because the state of the component itself, like for example state of the text renderer, that part is synchronized to everyone else. The components it creates are pretty much the same on everyone's end, but they don't need to be synchronized. And it's a very powerful mechanism. And we actually want to expose it and allow to build more things on it, where you can selectively keep things local to some users. Because that's it's going to be very, very powerful. For example, one of the things it can be used for in the future is, say, you're making a game logic and you want to prevent cheating by somebody messing with logic being in the world. You can keep some of the state and some of the logic under local slot only, so it only exists on the host, and it just controls the shared hierarchy. So it's a very, very powerful feature, a very powerful mechanism. It's mostly used internally right now, but it does make things much simpler and saves us a lot of work. Drago asking, hey, I honestly have lots of ideas for Resonite, and I was wondering if I could personally talk with you about it. Probably not, I'm sorry. We generally... So the problem with it is we have dozens or hundreds of people who would want to do that, and I don't have the time to talk with everyone. So we generally don't do this kind of thing. We back when we were very, very small, there were maybe a dozen people in the community that could have happened, but we've grown to the point where I could do nothing else but, spend the entire week just talking with people about stuff and ideas they want to do, and I would have no time to actually work on those ideas. So we had to make a system where things have to go through a shared thing, which is our GitHub. So if you have some ideas, if you want some features, I recommend making a GitHub issue. That way, we can kind of read through it, when I have time, we can have other people discuss it, and we kind of decide, when to prioritize it. But unfortunately, we don't do personal discussions talking about what kind of features would you want to see. It needs to be made into a proper issue, because another thing with the GitHub issues is we can skim them, so you can kind of quickly look through it and then be okay, I need to spend more time on this, or maybe not, or maybe some issues I'll be I want to give this more time, see if it gets a bunch of upvotes. If it gets a bunch of upvotes from the community, then maybe I look into it some more. But we don't do one-on-one personal conversations for features and bug reports, so I'm sorry. And next question is from Vision Fox. Unsure if it's already been asked, but with the improvements being made to the Unity SDK, is anyone working on some sort of autoconverter to help automate processes of talking virtual avatar setup and convert it into work with Resonite's Unity SDK? Yes, I'm aware of we already had a few contributions, like for example I mentioned, the Butler, like for Poyomi. I know a person who's working on conversion for VRC Fury components and some others that will essentially take those components and will translate it into Resonite equivalents. So we have avatar that's set up with toggles for clothing, for example. It'll just gonna convert them to Resonite into the Resonite context menu. So I think that's gonna be very, very powerful because you can just bring the avatar in, that you already set up for VRChat, and pretty much just click a few things and it converts and it will translate as much as it can. So yes, there's things that are being worked on. The Unity SDK is also open source, so everybody's free to contribute to it. So yeah, it should be coming. I don't know when exactly, but I know that's being worked on. LostScript2 is asking, I like doing software dev in my free time. Are you considering open sourcing more of the Froox engine? Because I'd love to help when I got time. Yes, so recently we open sourced the render, so the render library, the Unity project. So those are kind of open for contributions. So do make sure to read the README because we do have some guides on how we do some contributions and some things we would, for example, not accept. But yeah, they are generally open for contributions. Providing you can follow the things outlined in the README. We do want to open source more of it. The parts that I'm looking at next are the device drivers. So stuff that, for example, interacts with specific hardware. Say the VR hardware actually is part of the Unity one for some of it. Some of it exists only on Froox engine side. So for example, some recently I can attach the eye tracking for the HP reverb. So that would, for example, be open source. Drivers for leap motion or I think it's called haptic leap now. Anything that kind of interacts, with the hardware that acts support, bhaptic support as well. So those would be kind of open source and be more modular. So we'd open source the existing drivers and allow community to expand them or fix issues with them, or even just build your own for hardware that we don't support. For the other part is also want to open source the import and export system. So if you, for example, import 3D models and different image files and audio and whatever file you want to import, those importers would be open source. They will also be modular, so you can load more of them, and again would allow for community contribution. So you could for example, if there's issues importing certain model files, you could help us fix it. If it's something very specific, maybe we don't have time to look into it. Or you could create your own fork, or you can just create your own importer to add support for file formats that we might not even want to support officially because they might be, for example, too niche. So there's another thing that's going to be open sourced. The other part that's also open source is the Unity SDK and the library it's based on, Resonite link. Those are also open for contributions. But yeah, those two are probably going to be the two next ones that are going to get open sourced. I don't know when exactly. We still need to sort out a few things, for example, reference assemblies, and the systems need to be reworked to be modular. So we'll see how fast it happens, but they're going to come at some point. After that, we still want to open source more stuff too. But those are the two immediate next ones. And next question's from Jack the Fox Author. Oops, I pulled another one. For Lizzie, the mentor system we're working on, we've come up with a secure-ish in-game authentication scheme for using cloud variables for secrets. This works okay, but it's not perfect. Do you have any plans for features that cloud could provide more secure mechanics for managing, handling secrets in-game, or perhaps even secure way for outside servers to verify authenticity of a signed Resonite account when accessing the outside from server in-game? It kind of depends how you want to structure a thing. I mean, there's like, for example, OAuth that lets you authenticate things, but the main thing is like, how do you authenticate something that's in a world, without exposing that secret? One of the mechanisms would be having like, systems in user space. So like all the secrets exist in user space, and like there's a mechanism for the stuff in the world to communicate through those. The only problem is once it's in a world, like, somebody could hijack it and like, essentially use that like kind of communication. So like you would have to kind of design your system to like be aware of that. But it might be like, good enough like where it kind of like works. The other part actually would be like, having some of the local system, but again, like always the problem is, if somebody can take control of the inward part, they can use it to like send messages that you maybe not want. But at very least, you don't expose the secrets, meaning like you can do like in the user space, you can do whatever authentication and validation you want. So like if somebody tries to do something really weird, you don't just let it through. So essentially, you think about like, whatever is in the world, it's like the public kind of like, facing thing, that's like, the web page, like, that like anybody can access. So like you keep things, secure there, and it can communicate through the shared, like, through the user space, which is the trusted, like, more sensitive part. Next question is from Dargo Cuban. Will you ever have a Linux native release, or will you expect Linux players to keep relying on Proton? So we sort of have like 90% native Linux release already. Because of our multi-process architecture, we're actually running two processes. There's the main engine, that's like a .NET 10 process, and there's the render. The .NET 10 process, that actually is a native Linux process. That doesn't run under Proton. Only the renderer is actually under Proton, which is kind of cool because, like, we literally have we have a native Linux process communicating over shared memory with a Proton process, and it works. It actually helps add a bunch of more performance because the vast majority of the engine doesn't need to run under Proton. Now for the renderer, for Unity we probably won't switch to it because when we actually had, even before the splitting, we had native Linux version, but it had so many issues and we just didn't have time to work on them because they were very niche. Some of them were very niche to specific Linux distributions even. And it was kind of hard to go around them. Now, once we do replace Unity as the renderer, that might make things better because if we pick a different renderer, it might be one that works much better under Linux, and it also is not reliant because we use DirectX, and when we had the Linux version, we actually had to have separate code for handling OpenGL, which is duplicating all of the work. But with the new renderer, we want to use Vulkan, which is supported both on Windows and Linux. So that's gonna make some things easier, but no decision has been made yet. If the new renderer ends up not supporting Linux well, it might still end up running on a Proton, but we'll see. Ultimately, I don't think relying on Proton is necessarily a bad thing because it does make things a lot simpler and saves a lot of time, on development side. We kind of sometimes joke about it that the most stable APIs for some things on Linux are the Windows APIs running through Proton. Particularly with Clipboard, because when we were adding support for Clipboard under Linux, that was painful. It was so hard to work, and we just end up using the Windows API under Proton and proxying that. Proton Flags asking, what about one-on-one personal conversation about Mango? I mean, if I get free mangoes, maybe. Oh my god, I'm gonna read that. Check the Fox author. What about one-on-one person conversation about Rindfleisch? I can't pronounce that. I don't even know which one this is. I think it's the law thing. I don't know. sentences shouldn't be words. Computer is asking, what do those lights, the HRV and HARV with 0 hexanate on your color mean? That's the stuff for my heart rate tracker, but my heart rate tracker hasn't worked in a long while, so like these numbers are just bogus. This looks like I think it was just something in the chat, I don't know the context of this. Next question is from LostScript2. I haven't worked with the Unit SDK yet. Can you make scripts that get imported, converted to protoflux? So technically you could. The workflow, like the components for protoflux are there, but like there's no like nice UI to like work with them. So like it would be very, 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 very painful. Like, you know, very painful. We do have an issue, like on the Unity SDK repo, where if somebody wants to contribute it, you know, feel free. It's gonna be quite a bit of a project, so like we're probably not gonna add it ourselves. What you can do, however, is like you can convert some components and just generate a code that just generates some protoflux. There's a few things that actually do that. Because you can like, you know, instantiate other components, so like you could just have a fixed code to like generate some behaviors, and it works. But yeah, like doing the whole protoflux, that's gonna be a project, especially if you want like, you know, UI for it and stuff. Drago Kuvin's asking, will you ever follow in VRChat's footsteps as far as useful features go? For example, hand tracking, server management, etc. We already support hand tracking. Like we support like leap motion, we support like the Vive like hand tracking, the Oculus one. There's like one issue, but I think the one actually might be fixed already. But yeah, hand tracking is fully supported. Like we've supported it for I don't even know how long. Like Froox Engine had support for like a really long time for hand tracking. Actually, like originally I made like one of the videos for like leap motion support. It was like years and years ago, and it was actually the first time like I think it was like hand tracking support in like social VR, and like that video like went like really viral. But that's been like so long ago. But yeah, like with VR support, I don't know exactly what I mean server management, but like we already support headless servers. You can, you know, host your own, you know, servers. So you need to be a little bit more specific, like what kind of features you're like, you know, thinking of, and what do you expect from them, because like I don't know what server management means in this context, like because, you know, from my viewpoint we already have that. You can just, you know, manage your servers. I don't know if you want to like orchestrate the servers, like have some service that like allows you to download the hosting software and like, you know, spin it up, because that's something we plan on doing, like where you can have like orchestration for it, but you need to be more specific because I don't know what you're referring to. Generally, I'm gonna add one more thing. Generally, we don't. Our philosophy is not to copy any kind of platform. It's kind of look at every feature and be like, does this feature matter to Resonite? Is it good for Resonite users? Is it good for the platform? That's the only thing we kind of care about. Generally, we're not gonna do a feature just because, you know, somebody else has it. There has to be a reason why this feature is just generally good, and it is good for Resonite. But yeah, those two, like you mentioned, like we kind of already had those. Coswood's asking maybe a newbie question: what happens if I stop paying for storage? Essentially, stuff will stop. If you're gonna be over storage, nothing will sync anymore. So like you're essentially gonna get an error, and you will need to like either, you know, get storage again or just delete enough stuff to free up storage, so your stuff will start syncing again. Last script to my previous question, has anybody ported Doom to Resonite? I've seen somebody like working on it. There's actually one creator jam where it kind of, but it wasn't quite a port, it was sort of like a recreation. Yeah, I haven't like seen actual port. That would be quite a project. It's gonna be easier like once we have WebAssembly support, because then we can just kind of compile most of it. Next question's from computer user. If I were to try and convert the render into render to invisible render pipeline, would I have to find a way to attach separate shaders? Report the project. I know I probably would have to rewrite the shaders, but I'm unsure if there was have to do any extra steps to get the shaders working with the render project in the first place. Yeah, that would be a big project. So the shaders, they kind of compile from a separate one and load it. You would essentially need you need to we don't have a system that specifically looks for those, so you would kind of have to work around it. You probably would have to make a mod or something to load them. That would be tricky. Yeah, I don't know, it's not gonna be easy. It's not something we kind of plan to do ourselves, just because of the sheer amount of work involved. Yeah, it's gonna be big. I don't think you can do that one without making a mod for Froox engine side to change where the shaders are loaded from. Oops, sorry, I didn't to move the camera. Navy 3001 is asking, will the content made by Reso team ever go behind the paywall? So if you mean content that's already made, no, we don't plan to take existing stuff and just move it behind paywall. We might end up doing some projects that you will have to say pay for access if it's a big project. Generally probably not, but I will say never, because say we built some really cool experience, say we built a really cool game, maybe we wanted that content to be paid, but I feel we are more likely not, because we probably just want users to come to check out the game, to try out the platform. But also I don't want to completely exclude the possibility there might be some paid experiences at some point in the future. We don't have any specific plans for it, but you never know what's gonna happen in the future. Maybe we work on a big project. That's the thing. But generally I would probably want us to make experiences and have the supporters people just supporting the platform help that fund the development of the platform rather than experiences. The one case where it might happen, so we collaborate with somebody, some company who makes some kind of content, but generally for any platform content Cloud Home and the Essentials and so on, that will always be kind of free, because I feel that would kind of be bad if you had to pay for that. But we'll see. At least the core of it, maybe we will make some cool items that to help fund the platform, but I don't know. I don't want to exclude the possibility, but there's always going to be some. One thing I do know for sure is we're always going to have the core stuff that you kind of need to use the platform, that's going to be free, because it kind of doesn't make sense for it not to be. Yami Deftel's asking, what's your favorite world? Contrafibularities. Crossroad was asking, how's the Froox doing today? I'm kinda hungry. I didn't get food before starting this. I'm actually kind of thinking about if we don't have too many questions coming in, I'll probably end this a little bit early because I need food. Triple Helix is asking, how's that voice recognition thing you were working on going? It's progressing quite a bit. So for those of you who don't know, one of the things we introduced a few months back is something called a creative day. And this is essentially every developer on the platform, we spend at least one day working on something that we find fun. Because it's always a lot of the work is just kind of grind, this needs to be fixed, this needs to be fixed, this is priority, this is priority, this is priority, this needs to be dealt with, and it's just it gets very grindy. and it also kind of like, you know, loses focus on some of the like fun stuff on the platform, or fun stuff that we find, you know, fun to work on. So we kind of introduced like creative day. For me, I've kind of made it like be my Friday. So Friday I usually just work on stuff that I find fun, and I've been trying to like, you know, just kind of force myself to do it, just to kind of like get rid of some of the burnout and stuff, and just do some stuff that I genuinely find fun. So for the project I've been working for the last 3 Fridays, is a closed caption system, where when you talk in Resonite or when other people talk in Resonite, it can transcribe it into text. So for example, if you're hard of hearing, you can now like, you know, what people are saying. So it's going to be like accessibility feature. Another thing is it's going to allow multi-language communication, because once you transcribe it, you can also translate it. So for example, you can be talking with somebody who speaks only Japanese, and they, you know, and you only speak English, and now you can communicate because the system's like, you know, translating it. It's not going to be, you know, perfect, like machine translation's never perfect, the transcription's not 100%, but it is often like enough to communicate, especially since, you know, this is kind of an automated system, and you can have a conversation with people in different languages, and I think that's very, very powerful and also just kind of fun. Plus, you're also going to be able to use it, like, you know, make like voice command systems and a lot of kind of cool fun stuff. I've got it to the point where actually it was like transcribing what people are saying. It actually worked pretty well. Probably next Friday I'm gonna actually make it like work like kind of nicer. Like I'm gonna turn it into data feeds and stuff, so you can have like a nice UI and stuff. But yeah, it's going pretty well. Like it's getting to the point where I'm kind of thinking I'll turn this into actual like serious feature. Also, like the software itself, like it's open source as well. It's in very early stages, but it's what's the word? It is essentially not accepting contributions right now. It's not like fully functional yet. So yes. We can check the devlog. The devlog actually is like a funny one, because like I made a mistake, and instead of like accessing a root of the user, I was accessing local root, so it was always the user who was hosting, so it was transcribing me instead of other users. But then I fixed it, but I didn't make a video about it. But yeah, it works, and it's surprisingly like it's coming along very fast, considering I've been like working on it like for essentially like not even 3 full days. Winby's asking, I know, like in question marks, I wanted to say thank you for using my word. Ease. Somebody actually mentioned last time I was like looking for a word, and I was like, okay, I don't have energy to pick something today, so I'm just gonna go with this. But it's pretty world. It's kind of like, it is kind of that like old school Windows XP like era. There's even that, but like I didn't want to have Windows logo in the stream. And there's a CD. It's funny world. I like the balloons in the sky. It kind of has nice vibe to it. Okay. Triple Helix also asking, would you consider adding a text to speech? Oh, it's probably speech. So blind people like me can also use it. Oh, so like, would it like do text to speech for the translated text? So like, they speak in one language, it transcribes it, translates it, and then speaks the translation. I feel that's something we could potentially add. I would have to look into like what systems there are, because like right now the way it's made is like so it can be fully self-hosted, but we can like expand it and add more services, so it actually like you send it some text and it transcribes, like it generates audio and then you play that back. So like I think that's feasible. It would also kind of cool service, because like once you can run the server, we could like integrate the functionality into more things, and you can just generate like use it for lots of different things. Just like, you know, have an API, you send it some text, and you get like audio data back. Yemi DevTools is asking, do the captions only work on sound you can hear? Would it be problem for words in private conversation like Ravens would? Yes, actually specifically because I play Blood Clock Tower a lot on here. I specifically designed it so it actually checks, are you hearing this audio right now? It like, checks like if it's active for you, it checks if the volume's like, above like certain level, and only then it'll actually transcribe the data. Meaning if you wouldn't be able to hear somebody, it's not gonna transcribe it. It's not even gonna send the data. Similarly, say somebody's like in a whisper bubble or like they would be muted or something. If you can't hear them, the system will not transcribe them. Next question's from Drago Kuven. What is your opinion on people trying to make VRC and Resonite crossplay worlds? That sounds pretty cool. I haven't like really seen like that stuff, but like if you're like making like stuff that like works between different platforms, I really like that kind of stuff. I definitely love to like see them. Yeah, Medevt was asking, can we summon Peaches by just asking for them with voice commands? I mean, once this is out, like you'll be able to. There's probably gonna be a node where like if you say something, you're gonna get a Protoflex event, and you can just do whatever you want with it. So like if you, for example, detect the word peaches in it or peach, spawn a peach. The one thing actually what I do like that's kind of funny is because some people like to say certain things, they just have it do like effects. Like if somebody says like amazing and it just goes it's particles. That's all the questions we got so far. I might like end this in a few minutes because I'm really hungry. So if you got a few more questions I can answer a few more, but I'll probably be popping off in a bit. I usually like do this for like 2 hours, but I'm hungry. I'll like do some of the other things too, but I'm too hungry. Like going through like Blue Sky. Like I kind of wanna do another like tier list. We're gonna do another tier list, but I also don't have cider today, so. Ooh, Yamidef was asking favorite baked goods. Let me answer that question in the form of a 3D scan. It's actually not my 3D scan for this one. Let's see. Models, where's models? There we go, models, food. So I really like these. These are like one of my favorite like things. I think they call it Kaiser rolls. I really like those. They go with everything. But it's suppose I'm getting really too many questions. I think I'm gonna be ending this here. So thank you everyone for joining and watching. I hope like you liked answering the questions. There's gonna be another one next week. At least there should be. Oh no, we've got one more question. I'm gonna answer this one. Lost Script 2 is asking again. New buy. I have never tried mod. Will there be native mod support? It depends what you mean by native mod support. So for native things, we call them plugins. That's already supported. You can install plugins, but also we support mods. Mods are sort of unofficial. They're like made by the community, and they sort of like hook into things. So they use like stuff like harmony patching. So they're not officially. The way we go about it is like they are allowed, but they're not officially supported, which means if we have to we change some code and the mod breaks, that's the responsibility of the mod creator because they kind of hooking into like specific functions. So sometimes like with updates mods will break. Usually mod creators will like fix them pretty quick. We do have also official modding policy on our website. So and pretty much like the main thing is like we allow mods. You can feel free to mod this game. The only thing you have to make sure of is like the mods don't break any of the guidelines. So for example, if somebody made like a mod to like, you know, rip somebody's assets or like try to work around moderation, we will get angry about that. But if it's like, you know, mods that improve like, you know, functionality or fix up some issues or add like, you know, stuff like you want, feel free. There's tons of mods, and I think it is important for a platform to like support that. Which is one of the reasons like it's one of the reasons like, you know, like Warriors like want to be like we support mods, and also for things, you know, where mods can be used for malicious things, we have issue specifically with that. Like, you know, we will only ever want to have issue if somebody's doing something wrong, not even like specifically how they're doing it. So if somebody is like, you know, abusing things, you know, to harass users, that's the thing we have issue with. It's not the fact that they're modding, it's just that they're like, you know, harassing users. And whether they're doing it through a mod or like in-game item, it doesn't matter. The harassment is the issue. We don't want to, you know, essentially blanket ban mods, because there's a lot of really, really good ones, and like 99% of them are really good ones. So feel free to mod the game. We want to, you know, keep like, I don't want to say the word supporting them, allowing them, I guess better word, because they will do break like when we update stuff. That's the one thing, like, you know, we don't support in the way that like we would specifically, you know, roll back changes or like make sure that no mod ever breaks, because at that point like we would not be able to develop a lot of the aspects of the game, just because of the way like mods end up like hooking into it. But yes, the Resonite like has a really, really good modding community. There's a lot of kind of cool mods, so feel free to mod the game. So yeah, that should be everything, all the questions, and I think I'm gonna get some food. So thank you very much, you know, for everyone coming to the stream. Thank you for asking the questions and checking out Resonite if you're new. Also everyone, thank you for like, you know, supporting this platform. We pretty much like largely exist because of you in the community, because we, you know, support us on Patreon, you support us on Stripe. If you're supporting us Patreon, consider switching to Stripe, because even for the same amount of support, we actually get about 10% more money from that, and that helps us a lot. Yes, thank you very much for supporting us. But even if you just, you know, play the platform or part of the community, that helps a lot. Making this community, you know, bigger, making it grow, and making cool things, you know, for everybody to like play with. Anything kind of helps this platform. So thank you very much for joining. I'm gonna look if there's anybody to raid. Like to raid any streamers. I'm gonna go get some food in a sec. Let's see. Resonite, is anybody streaming Resonite? Oh, so there's Jenny. Can I write this? I'll have to copy this. This is quite a long name. So let me copy the name, because I would not be able to type this for a more. Jenny Beanbooper. They seem to be like going through some embassy worlds, so I'm gonna send you over to them, so give them a warm welcome. I saw them like in the Raiders thing from MMC. There we go, Raid is getting ready. So thank you again everyone for joining. Sorry for cutting this a little shorter today. I'm very hungry, but there's gonna be one next week and such. Also there's other office hours. If you check our official Discord, you should be able to find it like Discord GG/Resonite. There's events tab, and you can find like the Purple Primes office hours on Tuesday. There's the art team on Wednesday, marketing team on Monday, and moderation office hours are like today as well, but they're before the stream. So there's a bunch more, so you can ask lots of questions. So thank you very much, and tell Jenny Beanbooper hi. Wop. I'm gonna stop the stream and stop recording. What?